How's it? So this is Gutty, and I would like to demo off some work I'm doing combining Meteor with the Espruino. This is a very early demo. It might be a little bit premature to be showing off this code, but I'm excited and I'd like to get you excited too, so let's check it out. Meteor, for the Espruino crowd who've never heard of it before, is a reactive web framework. It's actually a lot more than just that. Some of those features you'll get to see in this demo, but check it out, www.meteor.com. Espruino, for the Meteor people who haven't heard of it before, is a JavaScript based microcontroller. Here you can see it over here in front of a dollar bill for scale. It's a pretty sweet device. You should definitely check it out. As I mentioned, it's running JavaScript, www.espruino.com. On the top there I've got an Adafruit Wi-Fi module which we're using for internet connectivity, and you maybe noticed that the device is currently being powered by USB, and I believe on a regular cell phone battery you can get about a week's worth of power, so that's pretty cool when you're planning applications. I'd also like to mention that I have zero prior microcontroller experience. This is my first microcontroller project. So there's really nothing to fear, especially if you're comfortable in JavaScript. Even if you're not, if you're not, you probably won't be watching this video. So, yeah, don't be afraid to jump in there. The most complicated thing and the thing you're going to spend the most time on is probably soldering the pin headers onto the board. So once you get through that, it's all downhill and the code is actually a pleasure. So let's get started. We have on the screen here 3 LEDs, and we've got 3 LEDs on the board, and as you might expect, we can turn them on and off. That on its own probably isn't so exciting. We've seen a very similar example from with just regular HTTP GET on the Espruino examples page. Where it gets a bit more exciting is getting data from the board to the browser. Here we have a button, and we have a button on the web page, and you can see we can press it, we can hold it in, we can double click, and it's all pretty responsive, which is great. The way we're doing that is we have what is essentially a bidirectional connection between the browser and the board. In the future, quite easily we'll be able to also connect the board straight to a Meteor server. That Meteor server can then live on the cloud and have a few thousand simultaneous connections, consuming data coming from the board, or essentially interacting with the board, and that also is very exciting. Yeah, so the way we're doing this is I wrote a very tiny implementation of the SockJS protocol, which is essentially WebSocket emulation. Things are only going to get better though if you take a look at the issues page on the Espruino GitHub repository. You'll see that Gordon's already opened up an issue looking at implementing native WebSocket support, and that's going to be based on the WS NPM module. So yeah, obviously we get a lot of the regular Meteor goodness without any extra work. If I open up this page on my phone, as expected we get the same interface, and I can click something here and you'll see that no matter where I click stuff, everything stays in sync. Yeah, it just makes it very, very easy to make quite powerful applications running on multiple browsers on different devices. All the data stays in sync without you having to do any extra work. So that kind of brings me on to my next point, which is the code. Because doing something like this is actually, obviously with the libraries that I'm providing, is actually very, very easy. Firstly, again, to the Espruino crowd, just a little note on Meteor. Meteor is super awesome. You really can write super powerful applications in a fraction of the time that you used to. Reading up about it, I decided to ditch 13 years of experience with other frameworks that I've been using until now, including a lot of my own libraries that I've built up on that code until now. I haven't looked back once. Writing stuff in Meteor is an absolute pleasure, and it really is the type of framework where you can have some free time on the weekend and write a new app from start to finish in one weekend alone. It's super cool. Check it out. So let's take a look at the actual code. First we'll look at the Espruino code. So if we go down, we're going to include these two modules, which is a tiny little router, and that looks like this. So we can add routes that call functions, and that makes it a bit easier than writing all that code ourselves. It's a very small library. And then we have this little stock.js implementation. We I guess initialize it and add the stock.js routes to the router. And then here's the Meteor logic. Sorry, I should also have an include for the Meteor module. For now I'm just working in one file, but never mind that. This attaches Meteor to stock.js. And yeah, this is all the code required for this web page. We've got meteor.settable pins, and that defines pins that can be set via Meteor with a bit of extra info, being their color and the initial state. And watch pins, which we use for the button, just keeps track of those pins. Now, if we go to the Meteor page, let's just bring that down here a little bit. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, you know, you've got your if button down, show this SVG, otherwise show this SVG, and the code for that button down is just this. Basically, what the library does is exposes all types of aspects from the Espruino into completely normal, reactive Meteor collections. So here we say in button down, button is pins find one button. BTN is the name of the first button on the Espruino. And if we got the button, that means if the data is loaded from the Espruino, then return button.state, which is true or false, depending on whether or not the button is pressed. Otherwise, just return a little loading string. And sorry, I should have just mentioned at the bottom here what we're doing temporarily. Is we're just opening up a second DDP connection to the Espruino. What the library does is accept and work with the DDP protocol. But in the future, I think we're going to probably move to a model where, or have both options, but a model where the Espruino talks to the server and the client only talks to the Meteor server. Anyway, the second example, real quick. Here's the LED section. We have Meteor uses a handlebars inspired language. We're saying for each LEDs, and then do the LED template. How we're getting the list of LEDs, you might like this. Yeah, the LEDs, we're just doing pins.find with a regular expression, any pin name starting with LED. And then we show the LED template. This is just an include for the LED template. Here's the LED template below. This is also very cool. It's a reactive SVG. So here's the SVG of what the LED looks like. And the interesting section is down here. This is the epoxy coating of the LED. And inside the middle of the style string, we've got a helper called style. And if we go back to the style helper, and here's state, which we also use. State, we just mentioned, is essentially returning the state of the LED. I don't actually think we use this function anymore because it comes straight from the database. And here's style. All we do is we look at the state. So if this.state, if the LED is on, then give it a nice bright color, give it a low opacity, give the glow with the filter, and if it's off, just use slightly darker colors, make it more opaque, and don't have any glow. And that returns a little string here, which is all style properties for the tag. That gets substituted in here, and really, that is the entire website. Let me bring it back here. That's everything you just saw. You don't have to do any additional code. Meteor on the library handles everything else for you. So yeah, I think this is pretty cool. I'm really interested to see what kind of stuff people can come up with the power of Meteor, and especially writing very cool front end reactive interfaces to well, anything you can connect to a microcontroller. My personal interest is home automation, but you can connect servo motors, you can connect sensors to detect the temperature, humidity, current. You can connect radio controllers to control God knows what, and you can do some very, very cool stuff. I'd like to end off just with a shout out to Rick Waldron. I'd actually called it a day yesterday. I was going to take a time out from the project when I saw the guy pushing commits to GitHub like a beast, mostly in response to a issue that I myself had created. So Rick, that was quite inspiring, and you made me get straight back to work and finish up the project. So thanks for that, and of course big thank you to Gordon for creating this Espruino, and yeah, I guess the fact that you are super responsive and super active in with the project, maintaining the project and the community that you created. So yeah, thanks guys. Let's hear some comments. This is Gadi signing out. Cheers.